Hello, welcome. Happy Friday, Brent. Good to see you. You might notice some Christmas lights here. I will trying to get festive up in here. I've got some. Go to my selfie cam here. Got some snowmen and some snowflake lights added to the thing. You can't really see it in my other thing. I need to make like a just chatting window that has a little bit more of this. That also includes the chat. That's on my to-do list. So solo view here. Yeah, lots going on this week. I feel like I always have this section about office hours at the end of the show notes, and probably should start off by saying what is office hours for the uninitiated, which it seems like Brent, you're the only one here, so this is old hat to you, but essentially, in my job as a design systems engineer at Provi, I have these office hours where anyone can stop by and ask questions about CSS, design systems, 11D, and we can pair on stuff. And also, if no one shows up to the office hours, I end up just, working or going through my browser tabs. So yeah, that's kind of what the show is. We do a lot of chatting. Sometimes we do some live coding. Hello, do I ever work with YouTuber Teach Lead? He used to work at Provi? Really? All right. Teach Lead. Doesn't look familiar. Might have been before my time. Tech Lead. Tech Lead, yeah. This guy. He doesn't look familiar. I'll have to check that out. So yeah. So we also do this thing in my meetings at Provi where we do a vibe check, just to kind of see how everyone's feeling, in case someone is not, you know, doing great. We tend to go easy on them and not give them a lot of shit, whatever. So on a scale of 1 to 10, I would say today I'm a 9. I'm feeling pretty good. I'm excited about today's stream. It's Friday. Got some fun stuff lined up this weekend. Um, I'm going to be going on vacation. I basically have to burn all my PTO. And so I've taken off from the 15th of this month to the end of the year. So excited about that. Hello, Baratafeo. Am I going to do 3D CSS? No, not today. No. 3D CSS is uh, not my forte. I mostly work on design systems, which doesn't typically involve like product based CSS. Typically doesn't include a lot of 3D CSS, so I don't have a lot of experience in that. But it's definitely something that I'm interested in, and certainly. If you're familiar with, as Brent is, the front end course Discord community, which you can find at frontend.horse/chat, which I will copy this into here. There's a number of folks who are both good and interested in 3D CSS. And Alex, who is the host of the Front End Horse, where is my mouse? The Front End Horse Twitch show, has had quite a few episodes about fun CSS stuff, including recently he had our friend George on to talk about, boy, I can't find anything now that he's kind of broken this up, but George was on talking about creating kind of like generative CSS using Houdini and the Paint API. And there it is, generative pattern magic with CSS Houdini. That was a really cool episode. But yeah, if you're interested in kind of creative development, I highly recommend Front End Horse. I will let's see if I can get this right on the first time. Shout out Trost Codes, I believe is his thing. Yeah, subscribe to his channel and check that out. It's a great show. and kind of inspired me to do my own little Twitch stream. It's kind of cool working, like doing work in public, chatting with folks with similar interests in tech. So yeah, I'd say I'm a 9. Uh, yeah, wins this week. This is a thing that I poached from Prince, another cool, very lovely person who is a friend of the Front End Horse community. Shout out to uh, Maxell. I think it's just Maxell on Twitch. Is that right? Let's try it. Let me just double check here. Nope, that's not it. What is Prince's thing? Is it MaxLW? Can I undo this? Let's see. Oh, I don't want to reply to Nightbot. Let's try that again. SO MaxLW. See if that's it. There it is. Yep, that's the one. MaxLW. Prince, lovely fellow. And with the W, thank you. A little too late for that, Brent, but I appreciate it. Jacob's here. Hello, welcome. But yeah, he does this little segment about wins this week where he shares his own wins and asks his audience to share their wins. So I did this Christmas lights thing that you see is all CSS, and I made that in CodePen. And essentially, I went into Figma and I made this light shape, which is not terribly difficult. Just the colored part, the connector is a little square, and then I used the pencil tool to draw the kind of squiggly, wire, and then I just took copies of that one light shape and kind of rotated them and copied and rotated them and copied, right? And so this is all just one SVG. And so all of the bulb shapes have the class bulb on them. And then I have these, blow this up a little bit so you can see it. I have all of these CSS custom properties that define the hue of the lights. All of them have the same saturation. So I'm using HSL to define the colors. Aaron's here. Hello. I've got your name here in my show notes. I appreciate you sharing the Townscaper in the Discord. Life's here. Oh wow, what a show we got! Everybody's here. Awesome. So I was just talking about how I made these lights you see, and then so I have the lightness of the HSL defines whether the light is on or off, and so. For each bulb, it has like a default gray, just in case. And then I'm using nth of type selector. This is basically saying every 5th item should have this color, right? So it will have the hue of red, the saturation, which is all 81%, and then the on value, and then color so we're defining the fill of the shape, and then by defining the color later on I can define the color of the drop shadow as current color so that I don't have to do like every single thing, right? Just in case, yeah. Like, so if one of the lights doesn't work or whatever. So I was actually coming across an issue here where because of the way I had the SVG arranged, basically it was like you had the bulb and then you had the little nub that connects it to the wire was a separate path, and those were alternating. And so I actually had to put those at the bottom in order to get that to work. Because what was happening is like every 5th bulb was essentially not appearing. And so once I rearranged those, this works. So this is saying every 5th one should be this, and every 5th one plus 1. So essentially like the second one should be blue, and then green, and then orange, and then basically rotate through those colors. And that's how you get the different colors of the SVG. So the SVG itself is just the shape. It's not really, the default color is just black, right? Because there's no fill applied. And then by defining the color, I can apply current color to get the drop shadow color of the same hue. And so we're setting this animation to blink, which is just changing the opacity. And then here with bulb, we're setting all of the bulbs to have this, use this animation every 1 second infinitely. But then every other bulb, we're delaying the animation. So that's what's creating the kind of alternating flashing, right? So this was kind of fun to play with. Like, I don't do a lot of like making my own SVGs. And so trying to draw this was fun. I just kind of for reference Googled like Christmas light vector to get some ideas for the shapes. And probably the hardest part was actually drawing the cable with my mouse. I redid it like 10 times because I wasn't happy with it. It's still kind of janky. And then I had to move some points around when I started alternating which side of the wire the light would appear on. I didn't leave myself a lot of room, so I had to reconfigure that wire a little bit. But yeah, this was fun to build. Didn't take me super long. But yeah, if you want to check this out, I will put this in the show notes. Scrolling panel. I'm not sure what you mean by scrolling panel. If you could clarify, that would be helpful. And then what else? A couple new blog posts this week. I haven't blogged since August. I did one about adding Algolia search to 11D sites, which I found to be pretty straightforward and easy. It did not take me long. But I wrote a post called "It's Your Website." It's something that I say quite often. Kind of the origins of "It's Your Website." And basically just talking about not being super attached to your tools because they change so frequently, but also not really giving a shit about what tools other people use because that's what they're comfortable with in solving the problems that they have to solve, right? And that might be different from the problems that you have to solve. But also, you know, most users, the end user doesn't really care if your site is built using React or Svelte or Cold Fusion. They just care whether or not they can view the page. Like you couldn't even tell looking at the site what I built this with, right? And it's 11D, but yeah, it's just HTML and CSS. Hydrate. I actually have water today instead of my usual cherry soda. Like when you have a message that you want to display to the user and the message is moving on the horizontal axis, have a message that you want to display to the user. Okay, so like maybe a little like yeah, you could use the marquee. That's true. Here, let's try it. Just start a new pen. I mean, there's a couple ways you could do it, right? Like, yeah, I wouldn't recommend this, but you could do the old. I can't type right now. Here, let's just do this. I think we can do marquee, right? Use a little what's that called? Emmet, right? Behavior and direction. I didn't even know those were attributes. That's very cool. Hello, dear user, right? And then this would like scroll up across the page like that. I'm pretty sure this is not what you meant. You would probably want like a div, right? Something like that, where you had like a similar message, hello user, and then you would use some animation to, well, marquee is like an ancient it's not ideal. It's kind of a meme element at this point. I don't think it's deprecated. Is it deprecated? You can still use it though. I think blink was another one. I don't think you can still do blink. Can I put a blink in a marquee? Let's try it. This is sure to annoy people, but let's see. I don't know that. I don't think that'll work. Yeah, I don't think you can do that anymore. Um, but probably a better solution is to have the div either uh, positioned off screen or set the opacity to 0 and then animating that into the position you want. So going back to this thing, if we look at this keyframes, so basically here you're saying that the animation it should use is called blink, right? And then with this keyframes, I'm defining what blink does, right? And this is saying that the blink should occur uh, over the span of a second. So I could set this to like 0.2 seconds, and then these lights will start flashing like super fast, right? Like right. So you can change the speed of that, ease in out. That's called the timing function. So this is like it's like a Bezier curve, right? That defines how the animation should start. So it starts slow at the beginning and then it goes kind of more linearly and then it eases out at the end as well. And then infinite is like whether or not that animation should repeat. So in this case, you want infinite, but in most cases you probably don't because you just want the thing to like slide in, right? The whole window decoration performance some lights have. Yeah, I was thinking about adding different types of animations. So blink would just alternate. And yeah, exactly. And you would have like different ones. Maybe we could have one that's like set to music. That would be fun. Uh, but this one's pretty straightforward. It's just saying like we're starting with the opacity at 1 and we're adding this drop shadow to it to give it a little bit of a glow. And then we're taking that down to 0.5 opacity. And that's occurring over the course of a second. And since that's infinite, it's just going on and off. And then with this nth of type, we're saying every other one should have a delay on it of half a second so that they're kind of alternating, right? So we could play with this value and the delays to have them kind of like you know, going in sequence, right? Like I have some I don't think these Christmas lights, the snowflake ones that I have up now, they basically just flash on or off or they stay on all the time. But the Halloween ones that I had up previously, they had like 9 different things on it. So I might use that for inspiration to see how I might do that. Some of them might be slower or like they go kind of in a like a pulsing way, but you do a lot of fun stuff with that. But for like sliding something in and out, you could do the same thing, but instead of animating opacity, you're animating like transition, or I should say, yeah, transition, right? And then the thing is transform, right? I always get those two mixed up. But translate is the property I'm thinking of. You can slide it in and out without affecting like the positioning of other elements in the DOM. And so you can kind of have that message like slide in from the top or, things like that. There's also like animation, like, let's see, animation, let's say CSS Animation Generator. Did I spell that right? Just lots of like, I don't know, tools like this where people have stuff like those kind of keyframes already done. So like here's blink. This thing is blinking. You can do like bounce a thing, right? Here's like a squishy thing. Here's a. So these are all you can see down here what this is. It's what it's actually doing, right? And over what period of the animation. And then here they're describing that it's using this animation over 2 seconds. It's just easing into it. It's not, and then the rest is linear. I do not want to sign up for your newsletter. Whether there's a delay, this is like the shorthand for this stuff in here, or for some of the stuff anyway. Oh, and you can do forwards and backwards. So you could have it go forwards and then go backwards if you want to do stuff like that. But yeah, there's a lot of kind of sites like this that already have these like pre-baked, or you can use that as like a starting point. Here's like a wobble, but you can do fun stuff. There's really only certain properties that you want to animate in CSS because it's for like performance reasons, but there's like animation libraries that can handle that with JavaScript and let you animate a lot of other stuff in a more performant way than just with CSS. And I don't really have a ton of experience in that because again, I deal with mostly like product design CSS, and there's not a lot of use for like animation outside of just really subtly like fading stuff in and out, uh, moving stuff on and off the screen, things like that. So yeah, that's the Christmas lights. This was featured on CodePen yesterday. That was cool. Oh, the other blog post. I did this movie a year challenge, right? So last year I had this dumb idea of like I'm gonna watch a movie a day for an entire year, and that lasted, as you can see here, it lasted about 3 months, and then the pandemic hit, and then I was like, I don't want to watch movies at all. And so this year I wanted to do something similar, but much less ambitious, right? So I had this idea of I'm going to watch one movie from every year since the year I was born, 1975. And so that was 46 movies, right? Instead of 365. And so I kind of talk about that in the post. Here's like the full list of movies that I watched. Letterboxd, if you don't know, is a really cool site, social media site for movie fans where you can rate movies, you can make lists, you can do all sorts of fun stuff. And it's great for kind of unearthing movies that maybe you wouldn't have otherwise seen. So I picked a movie from each year, and kind of just picked stuff that looked interesting or things that I heard were good. And there were some really good ones and some that I didn't really care for that much, and I talk about that in the post. My favorite one of the bunch was Blue Velvet, which I'm normally not a David Lynch fan, but it kind of blew me away. So a lot of these were very surprising to me. I didn't expect to like them, or I had never heard of them, and they were very good. And others were not that great, and kind of elicited this reaction from me, Aunt Linda from SNL. And so I've already made a list of movies to watch next year. So yeah, I'm excited about that. Um, Twitter drama. Yeah, so I wrote a tweet. Let me see if I can find it. I wrote a tweet. Was it Wednesday maybe? But it was just kind of like venting because there was something at work that was like a similar situation. And uh, I wasn't like trying to be an authority on uh I wasn't trying to be an authority on like, designers or anything, but boy, did people this really struck a nerve with people. There was more Twitter drama the next day. So it's making it hard to here we go. Let's see. This is a response to it. One of many. People were just coming out of the woodwork to tell me how wrong I was. So the tweet says, designers, if your design system uses a specific scale for spacing values, like 4 pixels, 8 pixels, 16 pixels, right? And you use some arbitrary value like 11 pixels in your Figma file, either accidentally or on purpose, and you hand that to a developer, they're going to make it 11 pixels thinking it was intentional. And everybody just came out of the woodwork to tell me how wrong it was. Oh, well, the developer should ask the designer and double check with them, and you should use design tokens and all of this stuff. Like, no shit, right? And I'm glad that you don't have this problem where you work, but this is a thing that happens. It got 225 likes, so some people related to it, and 15 quote tweets. I think this is probably my most quote tweeted thing, because everyone loves to quote tweet a thing, and it's like, look at how dumb this tweet is, and then they add their own little take on it. Michelle, who I used to work with, had a much more reasoned response. Designers should absolutely be detail oriented, and if something like that gets passed on to a dev, don't get mad at them for following the spec. But I also think it's 100% okay for devs to ask for clarification. Designers are human and make mistakes too. Absolutely. I'm not implying that designers don't make mistakes. We all make mistakes. But like, engineers, at least the ones that I've worked with, and I've worked with many, will take things literally, right? Like, they look at a spec and they think that if you wrote 11 pixels, it must be 11 pixels. I'm going to make it 11 pixels. You're the designer, right? And yes, absolutely. If they think that just I used 11 pixels as a dumb example, right? Like the actual situation that I was dealing with was slightly different. But in this case, like the developer just kind of assumed that that was right, and they're fighting with the design system because the design system doesn't offer those values. That's right. Pixel perfect means you use 11 pixels. And if it's not 11 pixels, you're fired. Okay. But yeah. So this is a whole lot of drama that I was not prepared for. And the next day, dear sweet friend of the show, Ben Holmes, creator of Slinkity, he tweeted, oops, I didn't mean to click on his profile. I wanted to click on the actual tweet. Been loving this palette generator from Peruvian Idol, that's me. Uses HSL sliders to generate a range of colors by lightness. Quick to copy paste some CSS variables into a new project. Try it out here. And this is the thing in question. And here's the thing about CodePen. I love CodePen. I own a CodePen T-shirt. I'm a huge fan. I love it. I use it almost daily. And the thing though is if you fork someone else's pen, there's no indication here that this is a fork of somebody else's pen. So I did comment in the let's see, if you go to the editor here, I think in the settings, it will say I wrote in the description, this is a fork of Jay's pen. I just added an extra value. And I had mentioned this on the stream where Ben had seen this, but there's like CodePen gives you no indication that this is a fork of some other thing. And so so Jay is like, oh hey, that's mine. Or no, actually Zach is like, I think this is a fork of a J pen for the record. And then all of these people were like, pointing out that I was not the original creator. And I never said that I was, and I never said, hey, look at this cool tool that I made. Yeah, it should just say right under the title, it should say here, Mike, instead of Mike Aparicio, or in addition to Mike Aparicio, it should say forked from whatever and link to that pen, right? So I added this disclaimer that said, this is a fork of Jay's incredibly useful pen. I simply added an extra shade to have an odd number of values between the darkest and lightest shades where I can tweak the colors and set rules around color contrast. And this is something we talked about on Alex's front-end horse stream when I was a guest talking about creating color contrast, rules around color contrast. And so what this helps me do is I can, I want shade 6 to be my thing, and so I want shade 6 to be accessible when it's used on shades 1 or 2. And so I can test those values in a color accessibility checker, and then I can tweak these values until that shade 6 passes, right? And so this kind of helps me do that. But yeah, so I talked to Jay and I was like, hey, I love your work. He was cool about it. But for a hot second there, I felt like I was being accused of plagiarism for a legitimate use case of CodePen, right? And that was weird. And then I guess CodePen felt bad about it, and they highlighted they showcased my lights pen. So that was my week on Twitter. It was very dramatic, and I'm looking forward to going on vacation so that I don't have to participate in the internet. Here's another pen I did. I will talk about shortly. Halo Infinite. I don't know if how many of you are gamers, but Halo Infinite, the multiplayer, is available right now on Game Pass on both PC and Xbox. And my friends and I are having a blast with it. Yeah, Jay is incredible. I bought his ebook about CSS animation, and that was a big help. And the guy is just super creative. I love his pens. Very cool. But yeah, having a ton of fun with Halo. Here's my stats. I started out really bad. Uh, and I've been getting slowly better. I'm still in the bottom 19% apparently. But look at this. I don't know if you can see this, but I am in the top 2.4% of suicides. I've killed myself 15 times. Uh, Grand Strategy and City Builder. I love those as well. Uh, I really like a lot of different genres, but the cool thing that I've found about Halo is that because it's such a kind of it's been around for like 20 years, right? Uh, all of my friends have played it, and so now that it's back, right? Everybody's kind of keen to jump in and get that kind of nostalgic feel. Like even people who don't really play a lot of shooters, we've had like 7 or 8 people on at the same time, and they have these big team battles, which is like 12 on 12 with like vehicles and it's just dumb fun. Like compared to I also play like Call of Duty and stuff like that. It's a little less sweaty, like it's just a little more laid back and fun. Uh, yeah, I kind of assumed it was your son. Um, but yeah, definitely, I'd love to play with you. I'll probably be playing a lot this weekend. I've been chasing the challenges to try and like unlock the weekly prize, but it's very difficult. Some of those challenges are nuts. But yeah, I've been slowly getting better. This last one was against bots, so that doesn't count. I was experimenting with swapping my melee and my crouch buttons. So the melee is by default, it's on the right stick, but I find that when I'm in a 1v1 with somebody and they're very close to me, I mash on the melee button, which is the stick, but then that pushes my view over and then I miss the punch and then I die. So I feel like by having it on a button, I'm less likely to do that. But so I was testing that out in this bots match. But so yeah, Halo, been having a lot of fun with that. Townscaper. So this is something that Aaron shared in our front end horse Discord, and this is like a game that's available on Steam and other platforms that they built in a browser, and I have no idea how this works. I'm sure some of you guys have a clue, but it's just so I don't have the audio hooked up into the stream, but like anytime you place one of these, you hear this like bloop, and you hear like a splash, and it's just super satisfying. Everything just kind of clicks into place, and you can like you can like stack stuff and change the color, and then like you can like delete stuff, and it creates a little bridge, and so you can do some really crazy stuff. And then here in the settings, I think you can toggle the grid, and so you can kind of see, and it's not just like a square grid, it's kind of like curvy, and so it makes for some really interesting landscapes. A YouTube channel called Let's Game It Out. Let's check it out. Let's see. YouTube, let's game it out. I've not heard of this. I'm always interested to hear like what YouTube channels people are into, because I just have a bunch of weird stuff. Uh, I built a gas station that's pure insanity. Oh, this looks fun. I use drones to make a nightmare factory. Is this built in like a specific game? Ben's here. What's up, buddy? You're not super late. I didn't start until 2, so we're just kind of shooting the shit over here. Thank you for the sub. 4 month streak. One of our founders, Ben Myers. Let me shout out Ben. Let's go, Ben D. Myers. And Ben also streams. He has a show called Some Antics. And see if this works. There it is. I think I spelled that correctly. You should give Ben a follow. He does shows about accessibility and web development and stuff. It's good stuff. Ben's awesome. So yeah, I'm gonna check out this channel. This looks interesting. Um, but yeah, Townscaper. I've been having fun just kind of when I have like 5 minutes. He's sponsored by the games and advertised them. Oh, I see. So he's really raking it in. Uh, Life you are not following Ben. That's a shame. Uh, yeah, this is just super satisfying. And like as you start adding like different parts, the house kind of like takes different shapes, which is really cool. So if I every time you like add a little thing, like the roof changes, and depending on how many things are next to each other. And I found myself like driving by buildings where I was imagining them built in this game. So yeah, this thing's on a bunch of platforms: Steam, Epic, GOG, Switch, Xbox, App Store. You can get on your phone, Google Play. So I think it's like $5 too, but really cool game. Uh, I appreciate Aaron for pointing this out. But yeah, I think everybody's talking about this now. What else? Open props. This is a new project by Adam Argyle. And it's funny because I had been talking to Adam earlier in the year, and he was mentioning this idea to me, and I couldn't quite wrap my head around it the way he was describing it. But seeing it here and having him having worked on it for a while, floating buildings, interesting. I'll have to try that. I heard about that, but I wasn't really able to do that. They were all kind of propped up on stilts. Maybe if you delete the stilts, then you can make them fly. I don't know. But essentially, this is almost like, I don't know. I guess I would describe it as kind of like Tailwind without the classes. So it's just really well thought out. Um, oh, parts of the map. I see. It's just really well thought out variables, like almost like a design system, right? So when you're designing a card, for example, it has all these different radius values that you can select from, different padding sizes, different box shadows. And so you can essentially style all of your components styles using these custom properties. Um, and so, yeah, he has all of these different, and you can kind of like just use the stuff that you need. And so like the whole thing is like under 4K, which is seems like crazy to me. But he's still working on a bunch of stuff. I'm looking forward to checking all that stuff out. Um, and so yeah, just about everything is in a CSS property, or essentially a design. He's using these as design tokens. Um, and so you have this color palette, different gradients, and if there's one thing that Adam is really great at, it's doing sexy gradients. Like look at these; these are just gorgeous. Uh, they're so good. They just feel good. Um, so these are all baked in there. And some of these have noise. Like this is really cool. I didn't even know you could do that. Steph's here. Hi. We're just talking about Adam Argyle's open props that he released yesterday. Um, he's got different shadows. So like you could basically go in here and edit these to match your own visual language, or as I plan on doing, taking ideas from this, how this is kind of architected, and incorporate that into your own design system. So we were chatting about this in the Front End Horse Discord, and since I wouldn't say I'm friends with Adam, but I've spoken to Adam. I offered to Alex to introduce him to Adam, so in hopes that maybe Adam would go on the Front End Horse show and talk about open props. So hopefully that's going to happen. I'm going to fork this and pass it off as my own. And then Ben Holmes is going to lavish praise upon it on Twitter, and then I'm going to get in trouble again. That's how that's going to go. But yeah, as with everything that Adam does, everything here is very well thought out. And oh, here's another example, right? So here's some animations. And so you got fade in, you got fade out, you got scale up. So like instead of having to write this stuff yourself, it all comes in this little library of properties, right? So these are like common ones you would see in like a UI library, and you can combine them. You could slide it and fade it, push it out, shake it in, right? So yeah, this is really cool. I'm looking forward to like digging into this a little more over my vacation. He's got media queries, right? So yeah, he's got a bunch of parts of this that are still in progress that I'm looking forward to seeing what he does with it. Boy, this is a long page. Uh, Here it is. You got icons, SVG. I don't know how those are different necessarily, but we'll see. At property, that's interesting. Shapes, layouts, clips, masks, variable fonts. I was trying to think of that name today. For some reason, the word variable escaped my brain, and I was thinking like responsive fonts. I'm like, what are those things called? It's variable fonts, which, if you don't know, it's variable in the sense that rather than having fixed font files at a certain weight, you have one file that goes from, and you can basically tween it between weights, and so you can animate it, you can kind of customize it, and there's different axes that you can control. So you can do stuff like, oh man, does anyone know off the top of their heads? There was one a few weeks ago that was like 3D. It was a variable font that had like the orientation was one of the axes, and it was oh man, that was really cool. I wish I could remember what that was called. But yeah, variable fonts are fun, and I wish everything was a variable font. Anywho, open props. The other thing that launched was Dusty Domains. This is a thing by Netlify that's really cool. Basically, the idea, we all have that domain that we bought one night. We were inspired and we thought, oh, this is a great idea. And you buy the domain, and then the next day you're like, what was I thinking? Um, and you just never do anything with that. And so Netlify is basically taking this the month of December to encourage folks to ship a site using that domain, and then they will, for each site, they will donate $50 to a charity. And all of these companies have generously offered to match those donations. So basically, every site you do sends $250 to a charity. And so these are some of the charities that they support. These are the judges. Netlify just putting together a team of rock stars. I mean, I hate that term in terms of developers, but I mean, you got Jason, Charlie. I don't know some of these other folks, but like Lynn Fisher is amazing. He's at GitHub, but you got like Zach's over there. You got it's just a whole dream team of folks over there. They're pretty awesome. But yeah, so I have a few domains that I have not used. I wouldn't necessarily say that they're all terrible ideas, but one is my son's name. I registered my 2-year-old son's name. I haven't done anything with that domain. I had the domain CSS Medic. I wrote a post about how being someone who's like specializes in CSS, sometimes it feels like you're like a medic in World War II, where you're on the beaches at Normandy and people are just calling out medic, and they're like CSS, and you're just running over to this team and helping patch up their CSS, and you're just going from team to team or whatever. I don't know what I was thinking with that one, but that's a dusty domain for sure. I had this idea to do a course on, like, for complete beginners about just making websites just with HTML and CSS, because I feel like that's an often neglected skill set, that like people just jump straight into JavaScript and they're making to-do list apps, and then they go work at a company and they don't even know like the difference between an inline element and a block element, and they don't know like semantic markup. They don't know what progressive enhancement is. So this was like stuff that I wanted to cover, and I mean, there's resources out there, but I feel like they're kind of few and far between. And certainly Steph, who's in the chat now, she has a lot of great resources on CSS and Levity and accessibility and things like that. So there's definitely resources out there, but just thought I'd make my own. I don't know. I don't know if I'll do anything with that. And then the last idea was there was a sale on tennis domains. And for some reason, this reminded me of there used to be a thing called Photoshop Tennis, which later became Layout Tennis, which was done by a Kudal partners here in Chicago. Wow, it's not a, let's see. Let's do Photoshop tennis. There it is. So eventually it became sponsored by Adobe. To-do list app tutorials are incomplete. If only were someone were stream about that. Yes, go follow Ben. He's gonna have Michael Chan, I think, right? Tomorrow, is it? Or not tomorrow. Tomorrow's Saturday. What am I thinking? But Michael's going to be on the show, and they're going to be building a semantically appropriate to-do list app. Wish the SNR dev at the last startup wasn't trying to use font tags. Holy cow. Wow. That's crazy. Tuesday. I will definitely be tuned in for that. That's going to be a good one. Michael's so much fun. I've seen him pop up like 3 times in the last couple weeks. But anyways, the idea with layer tennis was like a designer would create a design, and so they'd start with a thing, and then they'd pass that to another designer who would kind of riff on it, and then they'd pass that back, and they just kind of hit these back and forth and riff on each other's stuff until they end up with something completely different from what they started with. I'm a student of improv, and I found this to be just fascinating. And I certainly don't have the skills to do something on this level, but I thought it'd be cool to do something similar with 11D, where you start with an idea and you start building it in 11D, and then you pass that on to somebody else, and then they do something with it. So that might be fun, but honestly, I don't know if that would be I would be able to like sustain that. I'm very good at starting things. I'm very bad at finishing things. So I got as far as registering the domain before I just was like, yeah, I'm not going to do that. So these are some ideas that I might pursue with Dusty Domains. I don't know. I might do something with one of these. Or maybe even register a completely new domain. I mean, if it means getting some money to charity, then yeah, check out Dusty Domains, dusty.domains. And if Netlify's judges deem yours worthy, then you could send $250 to some of these charities, which would be awesome. All right, so I've been blathering on for almost an hour, and the thing I wanted to talk about was this Advent of CSS. So I'm sure you've all heard of like Advent of Code, which is just completely over my head. I have a bunch of friends that participate in that, and I took one look at like the very first one, and it was like it gave me PTSD from college when I took my first math class in computer science called Discrete Mathematical Structures. And I got the exam. It was 7 questions, and I looked at it. I looked at the first question, flipped the page, flipped the page, flipped the page. Couldn't answer a single question on this exam. Wrote my name on it, turned it in blank, and the professor just gave me this look of disappointment that I have not. I only ever see that same look from my wife. But yeah, and so like looking at the advent of code is just beyond my skill level. It's very challenging. So when I heard about this advent of CSS, I was very excited because I was like, here's something that's right up my alley, right? And so the first challenge was to make this timer. And I mean, just this took me a couple hours. And this is, that's not even including there's an advent of JavaScript that goes along with it that basically adds functionality to the CSS part. Oh, you follow her on YouTube. Awesome. So this is as far as I got before I was like, this is more work than my actual job. Like I wasn't expecting this to be as involved as it is. Like I was thinking it would be more of something like, what's that site called? CSS, what's the one where you have to make the thing look like the picture? And it's like the, help me out, chat. You know what I'm talking about. CSS Battles, thank you. CSS Battle.dev. So this is like, something small where you just have to you have to style your thing to look like this. And the added catch is like you have to do it in as few characters as possible, which I I don't know how people do this, right? Like first of all, like I don't like the fact that this essentially encourages you to do a lot of shortcuts. Uh, how do I look at my version of this thing? Played battles. How do I see my version of this one? I guess I just click on this. Okay, so here's mine. 428, sorry, 420 characters. Can you code a bot to minify the file? I mean, this is about as minified as you can get. Um, well, at least for me. Apparently the winner did this in like 100, what was it? This guy did it in 170 characters. How is that even possible? Like I thought I was pretty good getting this down to 420, and also 420. I was like, I'm not touching this. This is perfect. Like the only way you could get this better is if you got it down to 69, and that wasn't going to happen. So, uh, body and clip path maybe, but like so few characters. Uh, yeah, I don't know. But like then you can't see the results of their thing. So I don't know how that would be, but um if you're new to CSS, like, this is not the thing to start on. But I found it was fun trying to get this thing to look like the picture. And at least I got the diff 100%. The character count though is, I don't know, I don't really like it. So anyways, Advent of CSS. This was kind of fun to build. I like the design. The idea is that like, here's the default. You can start the timer and then this ring, I guess. I don't know. They weren't super clear about the design requirements, right? They just kind of here's a Figma file, make this thing, right? So I'm assuming though that this ring would animate, and as the timer goes down to 0, that ring would change, and you can click on this gear, and then you would be able to edit the time, and then check that to go back to here. And so yeah, I found this to be, not terribly hard because a lot of the values were available in the Figma file. So it didn't leave a lot to the imagination. It was just kind of a matter of like, how do you want to mark this up? And how do you want to style this? And really like the only clever thing I feel is like for the form, I have a before thing that's positioned that uses oh, I guess the radial gradient is behind this form, and so this is the, I don't know, where's the, here it is. It's a conic gradient that I'm using to create this ring, and then the form is above it, and so this pseudo element with the ring is just kind of offset uh, by 9 pixels, which is half of the width of the ring. So like if I were being super anal retentive, which I usually am about this, like I would make all of these values more flexible so that when I resize the browser, like this would shrink, but everything would stay in proportion. Um, and I would add all of the JavaScript functionality, but like just building this took me 2 hours, and like I have a full-time job, and I have I have a toddler, and like I don't have time to spend, I'm not doing a boot camp here where I'm spending 12 hours a day writing code, you know what I mean? Um, and much less be able to do this for 24 days, right? So So bless them for this thing. And of course, I just saw this and I was like, I want to support the folks who made this, which is Amy Dutton and James. Help me out, folks. James Quick, right? Is that his name? Did the JS Advent of JS part. And this is very detailed. They put a lot of work into this, and I can appreciate it, but I don't have the time to do this much stuff. That being said, let's go ahead and see how far we get with day 2 in the next hour. Um, so I actually have here the Figma file ready to go. So this is day 2. Let me widen that, and we will fit to zoom to fit. So here it is. It's basically like a Grubhub style app, right? Um, and so I'm not gonna buy. I don't have time to do. I love these blobs. These blobs are great. Uh, I'm basically gonna build this like I would be building a design system for a client, right? So if I came into this client and they're like, here's this thing that we have. Oh, look, they have these very subtle icons here. Uh, blobs. You thought he said boobs, maybe? Uh, sorry, this stream's already going off the rails. So if I were coming to this client, they said, hey, we have this project. This this is like their first feature, right? This would inform what goes in the system. So rather than spending a bunch of time, nice, I like it. Rather than spending a bunch of time building stuff that we don't need right now, like different variations of buttons or different type sizes, I would just let this exact project inform what goes in the system, right? And do it in a way such that we're not repeating ourselves with every feature with like text sizes and things like that. So let's see how far we get with this. I'm gonna do this in CodePen. We'll make a new pen, and we'll call this Advent of CSS Day 2. And not gonna do any JavaScript today. So we'll actually just start with the CSS, right? And I'm going to go in here and we're going to use SCSS so we can do some. I could do CSS variables, but typically like the way I work, like there's so many tokens that I don't necessarily need those all to be available to be updated in the browser. Um, and so those can just be kind of like obfuscated with Sass so that they compile to CSS, but we can modify them in Sass. So the first thing we have are global tokens, right? And so we have what are all the values, right? So we have I'm not going to worry about the background just yet. We have our black, which I'm assuming is just black. So we'll do color black is just zeros, right? And I would probably change these to like HSL eventually, just to make this easier to work with. And then we've got the, let's see, how do I get this element here? Now we're using RGBA. So you can really just mix and match these, but I would probably convert all these to, let's call this color blue for now. We'll call this light blue. All right, and then we've got red. So this will make more sense once I get all these values and we start writing some actual CSS. Um, and I'm just totally winging this right now. I have no plan whatsoever other than I'm trying to kind of share my weird process that I have. This is what would you say? Is this purple maybe? Color light purple? I don't know why I keep adding additional things on here. There it is. This is light green. And we might as well, since we have black in here, even though this is redundant, but we can do color white. That's, there we go. And then we've got this fun purpley color. And this is a hex value. Like there's like no rhyme or reason to this. Very nice design. But this is like the kind of thing I'm talking about with that tweet, right? Where like if you don't establish this system, like the developer is just going to use all of these values, right? And like really what you would want is, if you if you have a thing called row in here, that's not super descriptive to a developer, but if you have this, let's say you have this card component, right? This just says row. But if you have a component called like product card, right, and you call this product card, uh, then the developer doesn't even have to spec this. They would just see this layer called product card, and they would know to use that component, right? Um, so obviously they didn't build all this with that in mind, but the touch screens of fast food restaurants, yeah, for sure. I think this is meant to be kind of a Grubhub type situation. Um, so really, this is the only colors being used. Uh, and so then let's get some, we'll get some like type sizes here. First of all, this font is Poppins. So we'll just say font family is Poppins sans serif. We're going to keep it super basic. Uh, and then this is, we'll say Poppins is a nice font. I agree. I like it. I think is Alex using Poppins on the front end horse site? I feel like I've used that recently because I didn't have to install this, so I'm assuming I've used it on a project. Uh, we'll say font size. He did, yeah. Uh, so I've been rethinking like how I want to do font sizes lately, and I feel like I want to do it the same way I do colors, which I didn't even do here. So I would actually call this like I'd probably say this is like a blue. We'll say this is a blue 100, right? This is red 100. And to me, 100 doesn't mean anything, but it does mean that it's a background color. Like the lightness value is a background color. So these would all be green 100. And then this purple would be color purple 600. So we could actually put this together with this purple. So we have purple 100, purple 600. And I'm also going this green color up here with that. Okay. Um, so I'd probably convert all these to HSL. Oh, why? Oh, see, this is another thing I don't like. Uh, I don't like using transparency for colors unless you need to see the background underneath. Because like, let's say we change the background color of this card to something else, like literally anything else. Can I do that? Can I edit this? Oh, I want to go in design and I want to change this fill. Like, let's say I change this to red. Now, like, the colors aren't life. Thanks for stopping in. Appreciate it. Have a great weekend. Uh, so now these colors don't make any sense. They only make sense on a white background. So instead, you would want these to be a solid color, like solid opacity, so that on any other thing. So I don't, is there a way to, I guess you could use like an eyedropper tool to get this kind of like the end result value of this. But rather than this having an opacity, I would want this to be the color uh, without opacity, like this the same result without this opacity. So we'll figure out a way to figure that out. Um, but yeah, so font sizes we would want something similar, right? Where like the taller font is we'll just say this is 32 pixels. We'll just like get the values here real quick. What is this? Let's go into inspect. This is 18 pixels. And then this is probably also 32. This is going to be 16 or 18 as well, probably. Huh. This doesn't want to tell me what the font size is. Here we go. So 16. Eric Meyer has a color blend tool. You could use that to look for like 80% red, 20% white color stop. Ah, nice. Can you flatten in Figma? I don't know that you can. I'm not a super adept at Figma other than like grabbing values out of it. That's something I need to work on. Um, so yeah, this looks like small, and then this is probably also 32, I'm assuming. So that's easy. So we basically have like three sizes, right? Small, medium, large. Let's see what the text size is in the uh, button is small. So we could just keep this simple and say this is font size large, font size small. Sorry, this should be medium. And like this is assuming this is a dumb idea though, because this is assuming like we never have another feature that has a different size font. So while this would work on this project, for other projects we probably don't want to do that. Uh, we would probably want to make this similar, where it's like this is 100. This well, let's say we'll probably have maybe a couple sizes smaller. So we'll say this is uh, we'll say this is 400. This is 500, and this is like 800, right? So this leaves us some room for adding different values into our font size scale. And then we also want the line height. So we have, let's see, line heights. We'll just use the same numbers. This is going to be 48 pixels. And I would change this to, I'm going to change this to rem. So once I get all these values, this is 20 pixels. And then the smallest one is 32 pixels. That's weird. Why is this 32 when this larger one is 20? Designers, man, I tell you. 24. Why is this taller? All right. Well, this is the type of thing where I would go to the designer and be like, what's going on here? What's going on here? But if you have a design system and you're working with the designers um, to generate these values, uh, they wouldn't just be designing this from scratch. They would be pulling these in like let's say we have this component and we I think it's option, make a copy of that and make this a component. Then they could like uh, use the component that has all of the styles baked in and like drop that in there and fill in the text, right? So they wouldn't just be like styling this from scratch. So they would be using this text component, and then in theory, like this would be called like I don't know, text medium, something like that, right? And so when you have an instance of this in there, it would, instead of saying French fries with ketchup, your layer name would say instead of French fries with ketchup, your layer name would say text medium. And so the developer then has a component called text medium that they know to use that value. But you're probably going to have a larger component called product card or something like that that includes all of that stuff and has those components nested in there, where that layer, instead of being called row, right, would just be called product card, and they would know to use that component. So there's that. Oh, we also have this light. This is like a light purple. Is this the same? This is a hex value, so it looks a little darker than this. So we'll say this is like a border. So for borders, we might want like a color purple, we'll say 200. There we go. And then is this like a gray? It's like a little thinner. This is D7. Okay, so that's the same color. Uh, so we can do like, we can even do that, right? Like, so this is 1 pixel. So we can say border width small is 1 pixel, and then border length, border width large is 5 pixels. We got some border radius here. So this is 25 pixels. Wow, that's huge. Border radius large, 25 pixels. And then this is just like not 50%, but actually, I guess it, no, I can't even get this thing. There we go. Radius 20 pixels. What else? And we got font weight, which is probably just 400 and 600. Here we're just saying bold and normal or regular. So we'd have, I should put that in here. Font weight regular, 400. Font weight, all the semi-bold is usually 600. Bold is usually 700. Actually, probably, no, this says bold. This seems not super bold. But yeah, that should be good. We'll say we'll have a border radius round, which is 50%. So we got colors, we got font sizes, font family, font weight, line height, border width, border radius. What am I missing? Anything? I think this will do for now. So those are our global tokens. This represents every value that we're using in this feature. And we're essentially using this feature to inform our system. So we're only including in the system stuff we need for this feature, right? If we were to build out other parts of the same app that require new stuff, we would already have all of this existing stuff. And so every subsequent feature requires fewer and fewer new properties, right? So then we would have like the next level of this would be contextual tokens. And so this would be like color background brand. For example, our brand color seems to be this purple, right? So our color background band is color purple 600. Do we have brand text? We do. Color text brand is also color purple 600. So the idea here is that we can, rather than when we're defining our CSS properties, we can use these contextual tokens rather than the global tokens, because we can control, instead of controlling, like, let's say I wanted to change the brand background color, like maybe we have an accent color. You could do that without having to go in finding every instance of, color purple 200 or color purple 600 and changing that to color teal 600 or something like that, right? If you had an accent color. So this lets you control multiple components at once, where global applies things globally, contextual does it in certain contexts, and then you have component tokens as the third layer, where it lets you really fine tune how you want to do that. So maybe in component tokens, we have like the component button, button background color is color background brand, right? So we might have another component that has a or so we have like this button background color active. So we don't have a contextual token for this yet, but we could say color background active is color black. And so we can say color background active. So you can see here, like by having these three layers, we can, if we change the color background brand, that will affect all the components that use that particular token. If we want to change what color, if we want to change the value of color purple, that will affect, our color text brand, all of that. But if we wanted to say like introduce a new color and change how that's used, we could do that without replacing it in every component token. So if I change color background brand to say color, teal 600, then I don't have to go in here and change this. And I don't have to touch any CSS because that will be pointing to this component. All of those will be pointing to this component token. And I don't have to change any markup because that will be using the class that's in the CSS. So I can essentially control the entire design of the site via these tokens. Let's just start coding stuff, right? We'll say that this is a div, and we'll call this. The other thing I would do is I would prefix all of my classes with some 3 or 4 letter thing. So we'll call this Advent of Code card. So that's going to be that. And we've got like, I don't know, I'm assuming this would be like an H1. These would be like separate pages of the same app. I don't know. What do you think, Ben? H1 or H2? Let's just say H1 for now. We can change that later. Go to go menu. And then we've got these cards. I would probably write this up as like a figure because I love to do that. And we would have our image H1 for sure. Nice. Thank you. I like feeling validated and I appreciate like at work, I have nobody that I can ask because everyone has a different kind of focus. And so it's nice being in a community where I can like suggest a thing and people can tell me whether I'm right or wrong. and I actually respect their opinion. So we would have our image here and we'll grab those shortly. And then we have our fig caption. And I don't know how you feel about this, Ben, as far as like, this is how I like to do product cards. Because I don't know, it just makes sense to me. So I'd have like a P here. Yes, I definitely respect your opinion. French fries with ketchup. And then we'd have like P class AOC. So instead of saying like, I could say this is the price of a card, right? And this is maybe the card description, the product. This would be like a product card title, product card image, product card, description, right? We don't need to do all that. This is just going to be like heading, and then the font size, which is 800. And this is going to be $2.23. That's pretty cheap for fries, I gotta say. I would definitely buy those fries for $2.23. And then this is just going to be the default body size, so we don't have to add a class to that. We don't have to do anything. Well, the figure, we probably want to make a yeah. So the figure, we want this to be ALC menu item, something like that, right? And this is just going to describe the shape of the card, the offset of certain values, and that kind of thing. Article, okay. I feel like maybe your article would be this section of product cards, right? Um, I don't know. I don't really understand, because accessibility has not been a huge focus. Like I'm not exactly sure how that appears on stuff. I feel like uh I don't know, in like an RSS feed, maybe it's looking for like a single article element and not like a bunch of different articles. I don't know. I would defer to your expertise on that. But I just kind of love this pattern because it's an image and some text, right? And then also in our fig caption here, we have a button, and this is going to be like a AOC button, and then we'll say AOC is active, and then this is in art, and then we'll also want the. Well, actually, I'll show you a little trick that I do with stuff like this. Where you don't necessarily need the AOC in there. Little nuggets from Mike. That's what I'm here for. Okay. Let's actually we'll get one of these images here. I think they're on the side. You just grab these. Oh, these aren't even the same images. That's hilarious. Uh, we'll grab this French fries, maybe. And let's see, how do I think it's in design. I can export this as a PNG, and let's preview that. Looks good. Export plate, and we'll just call this plate. Throw this on the old desktop, and plate PNG. Article is one of those really weird, not very clearly defined elements. It basically refers to a chunk that could stand on its own in different contexts. What the specs call individually syndicatable, somewhere in the middle between figure and section. I don't know. I feel like figure is the smallest of those. Like a section, and an article is the larger part. The section is like a section of the article, and a figure is, I don't know. A figure could be in a section, or it could be its own thing. I don't know. It's all very like nebulous as far as like what any of that stuff says. So let's see. I want to click on the assets thing here, and I'm going to upload this plate from my desktop, and that should be fine. And then we will copy as URL, and then we'll slap this in here. src is plate, and we want an alt tag. It says like I don't know. This would probably be coming from a database, and we'd have to be lazy, so we would just call this French fries with ketchup. And there we go. There's our product card. And so let's style this up. So we've got our tokens. And so now we will just want to do, I'm going to do a my generic, super generic reset, which is box sizing, border box, margin 0, font inherit. This is the Mike Aparicio reset right here. Oh, the article element. Thanks, Ben. I'm gonna check that out. I would really like to be more informed about this stuff. So you'll notice right away, like all the margins are gone, and now our H1 looks just like body text. Why would you do that, Mike? Well, the answer is because I don't want developers selecting HTML elements based on the visual styles. So by doing that, if I go down here and do H1 heading, H2 heading, H3 heading, they're all the same, right? I'm missing a closing tag here. There we go. Right, so all this is the same. So now they have to use classes to get the style that they want instead of using the element to get the style they want. So now it kind of forces them to select these for semantics rather than visual styles. So I could make this like I could make this H1 a heading class, or I could make this a P, right, and get visually the same result but semantically appropriate. So there's our reset. I'll talk a bit about cool CSS, right? So we're going to build our components first. We're going to have our AOC, we got AOC card, and all this is background color, and we want maybe a contextual token in here that says color background default, or maybe you'd call this like we'll call this surface. I've been using surface a lot. Color white, and we'll have a component token called card background color is color background surface. Card border radius is we'll just say we don't really need contextual stuff for this. So we could say border, we can go directly to a global token, border radius large. And background color is card background color. Border radius. Oh, the other thing we didn't do is spacing values in our global tokens. So we'll do that in a second. Border radius is card border radius. I got surface from actually from material design. So they the way that they do shadows is they tie it to elevation or Z index, right? And so that's a great way of you could actually do that in here, right? So you could have like uh, elevation uh, elevation like and give it a name, right? Uh, or you could even just give it like a value, right? Like we'll say elevation 400 uh, has this Z index, right? Uh, elevation 400 index is going to be 400, right? Elevation 400 shadow is going to be, let's see what this is. Drop shadow, we'll inspect this. Oh no, what have I done? There we go. Okay. We want inspect. So this has a box shadow, right? And so now we can say that the card uh, elevation, card elevation is elevation 400 index, card, or I guess I should say card shard. We'll say card index is the index and card shadow is elevation 400 shadow. And then in here, we can say that the oh, hey, Alex is here. What's going on, bud? In here, we can say that the Z index, even though this isn't like a positioned element, we can give it one for shits and giggles. We can say that the Z index is card index. And the box shadow is card shadow. And so now we've got this shadow. Well, that's interesting. Let me, I'm going to throw a thing here on the body just to give us some space here so I can see what the hell I'm doing. Interesting. Why is the background gray? Looks like the page background is gray. Am I hallucinating? Is it just that crazy shadow that's making the background look gray? I can't tell. Very weird. So we also want to add spacing, right? So we'll go in here, and this is just some crazy arbitrary value. So this is exactly what I was talking about in the tweet, y'all, when I said if you put these values in your Figma, the developer is going to say, oh, this is completely arbitrary, right? A boilerplate linked in the header. I do not. No, I don't think so. That's a great point, but I don't think I do. That's for using this as one. I know what you're talking about. I do have one set up that where it pulls in our system framework. Alex, thank you so much for the sub. I appreciate it. The lights are pretty great. I enjoy them. We won't worry about that for now. But so when I tweeted, like, if you put these arbitrary values in here, whether on purpose or on accident, the developer's going to take that literally. Like, if you have a system, this is going to be, 32 pixels or something, right? It's not going to be 37.26 pixels. But we're creating our system for this first time. So this is kind of the stuff that we'll hit here. So we'll do like spacing. What do we want to call this? I like to just use the values. So spacing 32 is 2 rems, right? 32 pixels. And I'll probably convert all these pixel values to rems at some point. But I have 25 minutes to style this, so we'll get as far as we could get here. And so then we have, what other spacing values do we have? We have like the spacing between this and this card. The image itself is kind of offset. So this is 37. So we'll just say that this is also 32. The spacing between here and here is what? For some reason, it's not telling me. If I had to guesstimate it, it would be like 8, which is 0.5 rem. And probably the same here. So we can kind of add these as we go, right? But so for this card, this looks hideous. So we would want our card padding to be spacing 32. And maybe at some point we would see this appear a lot, and we would develop a contextual token for when we would want to use this spacing value, and we'd come up with some kind of intermediate name. But for now, we can just use that value. So then in here, we can say that the padding is spacing 32. So essentially what Adam's project is doing is like he's coming up with all these values for you. And so you can just start with this, right? And you could certainly edit those values, but his like, spacing, his spacing scale and all of his colors and stuff are very like deliberately picked by a designer. And so you can kind of start a project with those. Yeah, 37 point, yeah, sub-pixel rendering, no problem. So yeah, we've got our card. That's pretty much is the card. Let's do, let's call this class AOC heading 1, since this is like going to be our largest one. AOC heading 1. And we'll say that this is font size heading 1 font size, and the line height is, and we don't have these tokens yet, heading 1 line height, and font weight heading 1 font weight. And this is another reason why I don't use CSS custom properties for tokens generally, is because these tend to get pretty verbose, and I don't really need that to be in my CSS. It's perfectly fine for Sass to kind of compile these into a value. I do use CSS custom properties for things that I want developers to be able to like override. So I'll set like a default in here and then let them override that via an inline style. So for here we've got our heading 1. So this is another component. Heading 1, font size, and that's going to be font size 800. And heading 1, line height, it's going to be line height 800. And heading 1, font weight is going to be font weight semi-bold. And let's see, while I'm here, I think I can just do font family, and I think I already have Poppins installed. Not really, but it's sans serif, so that's a start. Thanks, Alex. I don't know what you're referring to, but I appreciate it when people call me smart. So we have our heading 1. The next thing is we probably want some margin here, right? Being smart is smart. Great. I try. I work on it. So 37. Let's just say we'll call this. We'll say we have a 40 value in here, right? Spacing 40 is going to be 2.5 friends. And so now these are component tokens. We need a utility token, and I call these stack. But actually, I'm thinking of calling these block. I don't know why. Because we have inline and block like logical properties now, right? You can do margin block and margin inline. I don't know. Maybe I'll stick to stack. I kind of like that. Stack, and then the value is just going to be margin bottom, spacing 40, right? Ugh. So on this H1, we want this to be heading 1, and we don't want to bake in our margins into the heading component because we don't know the context in which that's going to live. So normally, like in a lot of design systems or CSS frameworks, the heading would have a certain bottom margin on it, and then the developer would see a design that has a different margin, maybe 0 margin or half the margin, and then they have to write inline styles to or page specific styles to override the value that's in the framework, and we want to avoid that. So that's why we're separating out the margin. So we would say AOC stack 40, and that'll give us some spacing between our card, right? Okay, and then the card itself, well, so the card is separate. Now we have the AOC menu item as our figure, right? So AOC menu item, we want to, the first thing, ooh, what's the border radius on this? This has a border radius of 20. And okay, so that's medium. So we'll say this is going to be our menu item border radius is border radius medium. And yeah, let's just do that for now. Equals menu item border radius. And then let's just copy this. We'll make like 4 of these to kind of match this thing. All right, so now we have a few of these. And so there's a couple options here. I don't know because I don't have the designer here, obviously. what these background colors, if these background colors are related to like the type of food, or if these are just like we're just alternating these colors. But let's assume that these are just like a random thing of colors and they alternate. We can say that AOC menu item nth of type, we'll say that we're just going between these four colors. 4n background color is color. I think we said this is blue 100. Okay, so we actually want this to be 4n plus 1. There we go. And then we basically can repeat this. Let's say we just have 4 items that we're going from. We can do 2, 3, 4, and then this is red, this is purple, this is green. Boom, right? And then if we took this whole thing and we made a duplicate of that, right? So now we have 8 items. Now it should alternate those 4 colors, right? So I'm just implying this from the picture. Like if I were talking to the developer, I would ask what the product decision was there. Like, is this blue color specific to that card? Are we just alternating these? What's the deal there? For now, I'll just assume that it's, something else. And so we want the spacing between these. This is very, we'll just say that this is, I can't even really tell. But we'll say that the I gotta go up here. Another utility we can do is we can say in here, this is an Andy Bell special here. This is AOC flow 32, right? And then in here, we have a class, another utility that we call AOC flow 32, where anything within flow 32 direct children that are not the last child will get margin bottom spacing 32. Bam. We could lobotomize owls, but I kind of like this way. So I think if I'm not mistaken, because we applied stack 40 to this should override the AOC flow. So this has, oh no, so this is getting the flow. So what we can do here is we can do, I think we can do where? Can we enclose this whole thing in a where to get rid of the specificity? Is that right? I'm doing that wrong, I think. Do I need to do this? I'm seeing stuff shift, but it's not like updating in here. So I'm not sure whether that's working. But essentially what we would want to do is we want the stack to be more specific than the flow in case you're overriding it. Without like adding a bunch of rules to it. But for now, that's okay. We can live without it. But that's kind of what I would do. I would use where to basically keep the specificity lower so that this would override the flow property. So we got these 2 utility classes. We've got these menu items. The menu item should probably also have its own padding. Let me let me do this here. Boop. And put this back. So what do we say here? This is another arbitrary value. We'll say this is like 16, right? So we'll go up in here in our spacing and we'll throw in a 16. And this is one room. And let's see, menu item, same. Menu item padding is spacing 16. And we'll say that the padding is menu item padding. Right? And then the menu item is display flex. This is another reason I like using figures is we already have all of this content enclosed in in its own element. And so we can do that. This plate value is offset, so we can say that an image within here is going to have position relative. And it's going to be like top, I don't know, we'll say minus 16, spacing 32. And then left, same difference. So need to be more. Let's make it more. Let's make it 40. Looks a little closer. The only problem here is that the height of the box, it has a padding. What, the card itself? I mean, there's space between the edge of the card and the text here. Is the only thing I was thinking of. Oh, actually, these cards don't have. Interesting. This is like it's not fully like the edge is flush with the card. Yeah. You're right. So that's a great point. So on the card itself, it should be spacing 32, 0, spacing 32, spacing 32. And then we actually want the border radius to only be on those two sides. So we want we want AOC. What is this thing? AOC card padding. Actually, we want the card padding. Do this card padding, and then we'll replace this with this. And then the border radius, we actually want border radius large 0, 0. I think that's right. Border radius large. That. Huh. Card border radius. Thought you could do the border radius on corners. This is just not refreshing. Border radius. Oh, do you have to do top? You don't have to do individual ones. Let's say CSS. I swear this is a shorthand for all of the properties. Yeah, right here. So you could do stuff like that. Top left, top right, bottom left. Yeah, that's what I thought I was doing. For whatever reason, it's not showing up. Let me just hide this for now. You can see that corner. What the heck? Border radius, card border radius, card border radius, border radius large, 0, border radius large. I don't know why that's not working. um, I mean, we could do the individual properties, but I feel like that's overkill. This should work. If let me see if I just do just for now on the oh, no wonder. I'm looking at the card. You see the actual card that all of the menu items are in? I applied it to the wrong thing because I'm an idiot. So we don't want this to be on the card. We want this to be on the menu item border radius. So this is 0, border radius medium. Now that'll be on the card. Boom. We did it. And so we also want so this will work. Can leave that in there. We'll say I guess we can just apply it to the image itself. Margin right, spacing 32. I don't know if that's necessary. Actually, I don't think we need that because it's already next to it. But we do need the price needs AOC heading 1. Or sorry, this is AOC heading 1. Here we go. I'm going to get rid of all of these other menu items for now. We really just need to do the 1 for now, and then we can add those back in once we get all the classes right. Maybe this has a can actually on this fizz caption. What did I say? Fizz caption? It's late, y'all. We can put a flow on this guy. So we need to add that. Basically just do that. 16, 16. Hey, what's up, Thomas? How are you? uh, cool. I have 3 minutes left to work on this. So one problem that I'm noticing is that when you use position relative, it still is treating this box as if the image is where it is. So maybe we would want to make it absolute and then just provide spacing in here. 7 hours. Oof. I don't even think I worked for 7 hours today. That sounds pretty brutal. So that's something we want to solve. Let's crank out this button real quick. We have our AOC button. We'll throw this in here. AOC button. Our button has a background color. This will be button background color. It has a font size. I think this is just the default font size, right? 16 and 24. So we can actually just leave that and we can give that a font weight. I mean, we could be explicit about it, but we don't really need to for the moment. So the problem with position relative, watch what happens when I remove this, when I comment this out, right? The size of the card doesn't change. Good old CodePen won't refresh it until I do this. Oh my god, did it not save any of my styles? Wait, what's going on? It's not getting any styles now. This is going great. CSS. Why is it not showing any of my CSS? Do I have an error? I don't have an error. Let's try that again. Well, that's upsetting. For whatever reason, it doesn't like that. It doesn't like my comments. Maybe if I do that. Oh, here's an error. What's the error? Oh, I have these. Yeah, here it is. Uh, okay, that's why. Let me remove that. There we go. Okay, so the problem with position relative is when I remove this, you'll notice the size of the card doesn't change. So when you use position relative, it's retaining this like square and you're just offsetting it from its position without taking it out of the flow of the document. However, if I do position absolute, because I haven't declared a positioning on the menu item, it's going to use the next highest thing, which is the card, I guess, that has position, or maybe even the body. No, it's the body, right? So to solve that, we would apply position relative to the menu item, and now it's in the context of this item, but now our text is too far away, so we want to actually apply menu item padding that's like all the way around. So we would actually want to do that on the top. Menu item padding on the right, menu item padding on the left. And then we would like menu item image size, right? And so let's see what this image size is. This is like, well, I guess this would be relative, right? So, but we'll just say for now that this is 160 menu image. Menu item image size is, this is gross, but we'll say 160. And so now, oh, I'm still getting an error here. Undefined variable, menu item image size. I just defined it. What do you want from me? Did I not? Well, let's just replace this with 160. Just to get rid of, and now we have another error. Undefined variable, menu item padding, menu item padding. Oh, why is this padding left? I don't know why I did that. There we go. So it actually doesn't need to be the size of the image so much, but you see the height. You see the height of the card is now just being based on these items and not the image is taken out of the flow. So this could probably be like 140, right? And then this is more like the jazz shapes. Yeah, I really want to get into that. But like I've already been working on this for an hour, and granted, I'm way over engineering this as if I was making a design system, but like this is just so much work. So we've got that. Let's make our button real quick. So we have our, I think I started it down here. Button background color. Yes, over engineering. All right. I got another over engineering fan. We'll call this button primary because we might have other colors. Well, we'll just call it button for now. Button background color is background color brand. And let's see. Oh, did I have that there already somehow? Button background color. And then button text color is going to be, we'll add another contextual token called color text inverse, color right. And we'll put that down here, color text inverse. And then in our button, this is what I mean by over-engineering. Color, button, text color, right? Of course, nothing's happening because I have another error. Undefined variable button background color. Wait, what? I'm literally defining it right here. What are you talking about? Button background color. How can this be undefined? Oh, Lord. Let's save this. And then refresh it. See if that fixes it. No, I'm getting another error. Button text color, button background color. Button text color, button background color. Color text inverse. We have here. Color, background color brand. Oh, that's why. Color, this is color background brand. Hey, there we go. And then we want our button font weight to be font weight semi-bold. And we want the button border radius to be border radius medium. All right, so we'll apply those to our styles here. Font weight, button, font weight, and border radius, button, border radius. And we'll say border equals 0. We don't need a border, and we need some padding on this. So this is going to be, zoom in here a bit. This is going to be some arbitrary number here. We'll say 16 and like, I don't know, 4. We have spacing 4. So we'll say button padding is going to be spacing 4 on the top and bottom and spacing 16 on the sides. And then button padding. Boom. And we'll just say this under font weight. Looks a little better. It's a little top heavy because there's no descenders. We might actually want this to be 8. So button padding, set this to 8 and 16. That looks a little better. Now I feel like this offset is way too high. So we'll say this is like 32. That's still like too much. Maybe like 24 would be great, which we don't have in our system. We will add that. This is 1.5 rem. Here we go. And then we'll change this crazy hard-coded number to 172, something like that. 180. Is this doing anything? Oh, I know why, because I have it down here. We'll say like, I don't know, 156. This is all just arbitrary numbers for the moment, but something like that. And then, oh, even this button though is interesting. Like the button is also positioned. Absolutely. So this is like, if the button is 28, right? Which I don't think ours is quite 28. Ours is 32. So we'll say that the offset is 16. Boy, is this annoying. So the menu item image and then the menu item button is also position absolute. And its top, oh, look at that. It just flows in there. But we want it to be bottom minus spacing. I hope if I put a $sign in there, spacing 16. Should be same difference. Why is this image so huge? Also, why can't I? Here it is. So the image size is 150. I wish these images were square. Drives me nuts. The height of the image is 146.24. But we can just do that. Ah, I see. This is wrapping. So we'll say that this is, what's the width of this? 375. So the card, we'll just say has a max width of 375 pixels. Let's see if that fixes that. Yeah, there we go. So now that's wrapping. That's looking a little more like the picture. Make them square. I know, right? Just make them square. What's wrong with you? Yeah. Oh, so this one's in cart, so we have like this active state as well. So we would want to do that. So I'll do one last thing before I call it a day here. Besides get this Poppins font installed. I'm going to show you how I would do like this. So the way I marked this up was AOC button, but its AOC is active. And so so down here, if this is AOC button and also AOC is active, background color is, I'm not going to bother to do the component tokens right this second because I just want to illustrate this, but this would be colored black. AOC, so I prefix all of my classes with the project name, so we're calling this Advent of Code. So all of my class names are prefixed with AOC. So the idea there is that if you're coming into a situation where a company already has styles and you're creating a design system, like by prefixing everything with AOC, you're reducing the uh, you're you're reducing the chances that you're going to conflict with existing styles. If I just called this button and they were pulling in Bootstrap or something, and there was another class called button, then those two exactly. It's the Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez buttons. Um, and then if that continued to be problematic, where maybe stuff in your framework was targeting input, like directly targeting HTML elements, you could create you could scope all of that within a class called like AOC styles, BS buttons. Yeah, there you go. Uh, so you see now that I have this AOC is active also, and that's just overriding the color, but we're missing this check mark. So what I would do is I would grab this check mark here, if I could actually select it, and I will export this check mark. I think that's in design. Export. I want this to be an SVG. I'm going to preview this. It looks good. I'm going to export it. And we'll call this lowercase check. Save that to here. There's a website called, and you can do this also in the command line. There's a command line utility you can do for this. This is called SVG-OMG. I'm going to take this thing on the desktop. Oh, you can right click and copy as SVG. That's good to know. Learn something new every day. Where is my, did I not put it in here? I swear to God, I just exported that, or did I not? Am I missing the, here it is. Oh, it's right there. Why is it not showing up in here? Binder gaslights me every day. I swear to God. This only ever happens when I'm like streaming. Okay, desktop, check mark, save. Yes, I want to replace it. Open SVG. Help me out, bro. Oh, am I looking in the wrong place? Here it is. Okay, jeez. All right, so what this does is it basically simplifies the thing, pulls out all the Figma specific stuff, and I can go like this, and then I can go to URL. What we want to do is URL encode SVG, and you got this URL encoder. I can copy that, insert the SVG itself, get rid SVG OMG adds this thing of how much it saved you, so it reduced it like 89%. Here's our check mark. We now have this as a background image, right? So I can take this background image and I can put this in this button background image. I want to say that the background size is, I don't know, we'll say 16 pixels by 8 pixels. That seems wrong, but we'll say background repeat, no repeat. Background position. We want that to be, I always forget I think we want this to be top 50%. No. Okay, so it's top 50% top, I think. No. We want it to be oh boy, left 8 pixels. I don't know. 8 pixels left, 50%. I can never figure this out. I swear to God. but basically what we want to do is position it here, and then we want our button to have padding left, we'll say 32 pixels, something like that. Probably help if I put a semicolon here. CSS background image position. And you can tell how many times I've like Googled stuff like this is like basic shit. Like, I don't know what DHH is talking about. Like, you have to look shit up all the time. Oh, this is a terrible example. Doesn't show you how to mix values. Brent, good to see you. Have a great weekend. Why don't you put the SVG in the HTML? I'll tell you why. Because let's say I'm making a CSS framework and I have this component that has this SVG in here. I can bake it into the CSS without having to use an SVG in the button itself. So the idea here is that this component, all the styles of this component are baked into the CSS file, and you don't have to use it in here because it doesn't necessarily need to be an SVG element in here for screen readers because they don't really care about the check mark. They just are more interested in the fact that it says that it's in the cart. The check mark is kind of extraneous. So another example is like if I had a search input that had a magnifying glass icon in it, instead of building that out in the markup, I can include that background image in the CSS so that it's just part of the style. So I can just put a class on a input element, and now it's a search and it's got the magnifying glass. I don't have to make sure that I have this SVG, and there's not like, this SVG isn't going to get overridden by some other check mark or something like that. I know that this is what was originally in the design. So let's change this to like, I don't know, 24 pixels by 24 pixels, something like that. That seems too big. 16 pixels. I don't know. Does that make sense? Why I would do it that way? Not everyone does it that way, and that's fine. But I find that is my main role in design systems is creating CSS frameworks that support the system, that then the engineers can just utilize the CSS framework instead of having to write any CSS, and really without having to worry a lot about assets and stuff. Like they're still, they would still have to source these images, but like the check mark would be included in the component without them having to like export this file, right? Ideally, this button would be set up. So here's the thing in the layers, right? Instead of this saying check, this would be like, the name of this would be like button dot is active, right? And they would know that there's a component called button, and that it has this other class on it called is active that indicates that this should be, this specifies that it's black and it has the check mark baked into it. So all they have to do is like, the component would probably have the logic that would say what the text says depending on the state, if it's, with or without the class is active. Maybe that's called something else. I don't know. But is active is a nice generic term that can apply to any state outside of the context of this specific example. But yeah, anyway, background positioning, I would want to get that position correctly and make sure that the size matches. And then I would want to get the font in here so that it doesn't look as crappy. But yeah, this is kind of how I would approach it. This is an hour and a half into it. But we have our own little mini design system. And if we were to, let's say that the feature that we're working on is just this page, right? This menu. Maybe I'll revisit this next Friday. So I stream every Friday, typically 1 to 3 Central. Today I was a little late because I had a prior commitment for work. But yeah, maybe we'll continue this next week, and I'll finish up this part. But let's say like this first page was the feature we're working on, right? And we built all of this to support this page. All of this stuff we added all this stuff to the system to inform, or we let this page inform what we put in the system, and we only put that in the system. We only put the stuff we needed to support this. And then our next feature is this cart page, right? We would have a few new things. We'd have these arrow buttons, which again, we could use the SVGs to show increment and decrement here. We could add this thing that displays the number of items, and we would add these borders. And this is maybe a very small like table layout, or even like a definition list. We could set that up that way and basically just add those items that we need for this. But we already have we have these text sizes already. We have well, I mean, a lot of this is new. We have this, we have all our text sizes. We have all our spacing values. We might need to create some utilities to do flex on some of the stuff. But every subsequent feature, we're adding less and less stuff to the system, and we're able to basically just go in here and use the classes that are in the system. And the other step we would do while we were writing this is we would document all this stuff. So we would have here's a button class, and here's all the different states of a button, and here's the markup you need to make it look like this, and here's contexts where you would use this versus another type of button, etc. And then that would be kind of our reference for, and you could use, what's it called? Style book. Is that what it's called? Style book. I'm mixing up style dictionary and the other one. You know what I'm talking about. Like a component library, right? It has the sometimes it has the documentation baked into it. But yeah. So, but I mean, here we get this thing, and we've used like a very minimal amount of classes, and these classes are all reusable. We could use a card a card does not have to be in the context of a menu. We could use that anywhere, like the cart, for example, right? Also could have this card treatment. And things like our utility classes that give us flow, we don't have to apply that directly to a menu item. So that reduces the amount of CSS we have to write. And similarly, the heading, we don't have to specify that this heading is a card heading or a product item heading. So we don't constantly have to redefine these different font sizes and line heights and colors and font weights and things like that. We can just have this heading that we can reuse in different places. Like we're using it here for the cart. We're using it for the price. We're using it down here for the price, right? It doesn't have to be like, cart price font size, or whatever like that. We're making it very atomic so that we only are making new stuff when we need it, and we're not like repeating ourselves in our CSS. So we really, we don't have a ton of CSS here either, aside from all of the tokens, which once you compile the Sass would not really be included in here. We're looking at, maybe 100 lines of code to style this. So bring the lights next time. You talking about these lights, or these lights will be here until Christmas at least. Yeah, thanks for coming by. I appreciate everyone who stopped in, and I hope you got something out of this, and it was fun hanging out with you all. And I will see you next Friday. Have a wonderful weekend, and I will talk to you next time. Thanks.